Hey everyone, this is going to be an updated recording of how to start to do your homework. I had a few recordings here. One was kind of rushed after a change that GitHub had done previous semester, and I had, I guess, forgotten to redo it in the proper steps. So this one is to go through everything fully from start to finish. Now, I'll be using my IT 202 class for the sake of example, but any other class that you possibly have with me is going to be the same basic process, just slightly different questions. So I'm going to be going over my platform and the path of least resistance in order to get your homeworks done. And hopefully this is the more thorough way of doing it. As you can see in the video already, um, this is after people have already done it. So we're in the process of just ironing out any issues. So first we want to go open up the um, assignment. If you have more than one class with me the same assignment, then you'll get a select list. You really shouldn't get a select list. It should just redirect to your proper assignment. So I will do this from the perspective of my class's semester. Now, I already have an assignment in progress, so I'm going to kind of start from fresh and talk about the platform from that perspective. So first, I'm going to close this one, um, and I'll start a new one from a fresh copy. Now, when you close a submission that's active, that means the grader is not really going to consider it. We only close it if for some reason we have to update the original submission, or if I make a change or something, or if there's some other issue down the line. You really shouldn't really need to close it. It should all be fine. But anyway, so I have a submission that's open here. In the top, it shows your latest 5 submissions. So the way it works is once you start a submission, you can keep updating it until you're done with it. Then once it's either closed by yourself or graded by the grader, you can't update that submission. You'd have to make a new submission, either as a copy or as a new item. And then you'd fill it out, fix whatever you need to fix if the grader or myself is allowing resubmissions for the item, and then update Canvas and everything. But I'll be going through the process. But you can see your latest submissions here. If you didn't have one active, you can create one and all that. You'll see your course and section here. You'll see the title of submission, the assignment, and you'll see how many points you'll be getting for this particular submission. On the left panel, and at the top here, you'll see the status of whether or not the current submission is saved. If it's saved, then you're good to close your window whenever, but that doesn't mean you're submitted yet. There's still a little bit of a process that I'll be going through. You also have some quick buttons to jump down to different tasks if you need to. You'll have different colored icons here that are going to change as you fill in a submission to let you know if you're finished or not. Again, you can autosave or you can not autosave. I have this as an option because once in a while, some people noticed where with autosave, it might jostle the screen to different points. Maybe not always, but once in a while, depending what you're doing. So um, it's up to you if you want to have that. Just make sure that everything is green before you're trying to do what you do. Then we have our instruction section. So instruction section will usually give you some information about the assignment. If the assignment has any templates, it'll include the templates. It'll usually, I'll try my best to make sure that it includes the basic steps of, preparation and submission. As the semester goes, the instructions may be a little bit less step by step and a little bit more abstract because we should be knowing these steps by then. But this one is in the context of the M1 getting started, which would be the first homework assignment you have to deal with. So in this one, I will go through everything and explain everything. I realize that I do have a typo here, which is why there's some confusion here. So I'm going to quickly just edit this for clarity. I've made a couple changes over the semester, so I mean over the various semesters, so I'm just need to remember to make it up to date. So right now that's not going to show. I'm going to just close this out again, and I'm going to start a new submission, and hopefully everything refreshes. Let's see. Whatever. Okay. It didn't refresh, so let me close this. I'm not going to start the submission. There we go. Okay. So now I have the UCID course. So however the instructions prior mentioned to set this up is how you want to do it. Recently, I've had it changed to UCID course and section. That's just so when you're reaching out to me for like help and stuff, I know exactly who I'm working with because not everybody uses like their UCID as their GitHub username. So by having the UCID, it makes it easier to map who I'm actually helping out with questions or whatever, or grading, etc. Good. Then normally what we want to do, this one is just making sure it's private. So I created the fake one here. You'll know it's private if you see the lock icon. If you did make it public, you do not need to remake it. You can just scroll down, you can go to settings and just scroll down and make it private. Keep it private until the end of the semester. Once the end of the semester rolls around, I'll have you guys make it public so you can share it for interviewers and whatever you decide to do. Now this one I just made generic UCID course section just so it fits across all the classes in a single video. This is the one I'm going to be working with for this demonstration. All right, so first invite your collaborator. Um, again, I guess this one changed, so I do have to fix this. So I guess that's where some of the other confusion is. I'm gonna again make that edit. I'll update this and go to collaborators, and I'll update this so at least in the future it makes a little bit more sense. Um, the reason behind this is GitHub keeps doing mini updates, so I have to make sure I keep up to date with whatever's going on. And sometimes I miss getting to update things officially. All right, good. So collaborators, invite collaborator. Awesome. So let's go through that. For me, it has my ID here, but if we have a grader for the class, which I usually do get graders, I usually have a Canvas announcement to invite that particular grader. So make sure you check Canvas for that other part. But we go to settings, we go to collaborators or in the access tab. So hopefully the previous one still would make sense. It's probably going to ask you for your information to confirm. And then the first one we do add people. Then we can add my user. Now I can't invite myself, so just for sake of example, I'm going to invite my old student one. But do not add my student one because I don't access your homework through my student one. That's ancient. So I can invite myself, but to do the full example, I will be doing my student one. So I'll invite myself, and then I would invite my grader. So like, let's say my grader is Matt Togel or Matt Togel 2 or whatever, I would invite them. I don't want to lock this video to a specific person, so I'm not going to be searching for that grader. You'd find their name, write it here, and click the proper selection that comes up to invite them. Now this invitation link lasts for 7 days, so we have 7 days to accept it. However, GitHub does sometimes not mark that it has been that we've been invited, so it shows for you, but it doesn't show for us. So in those rare occasions, you just remove and then re-invite us, and then hopefully we catch it without any GitHub issues. Once we are accepted, you should see it update here, and we will have access to your repository. Only people that are invited here will have access, which should just be me and the grader, if we have a grader. Good. Okay, so that's that part. From the terminal command line, create a new branch called M1 getting started. So each homework is going to have a specific branch name that I'm looking for. Now, following it exactly isn't super important. As long as it's close enough, it's fine. So for example, if it says W1 instead of M1, it's fine. I had broken some courses down into weeks instead of modules. Now they're mostly modules. So I'm going to go through that process. I'll do this all from my VS Code section, so I make sure I have the repository open here, and I also have my Git Bash open here. Now, little side note, if you want to get Git Bash here, make sure you click the plus icon, select default profile, and select Git Bash so it becomes your default. Then you'd click the new plus icon to open up that new default terminal. But anyway, I'm going to keep these here. Now, the way this is going to work is as long as they're both looking at the same folder, they're going to see the same things, and that's what we're going to rely on. So we'll do most of our work here, but we'll do the git commands here. And that's usually what I encourage for the classes. So first it said to make a new branch. So I'm currently in main. Always make sure your main is up to date when you're doing this, or whatever branch is the default branch at the time you need to go over this video. and I'm going to create one called M1 getting started. So again, get checkout switches to a branch, minus B creates a branch. So it's going to create the branch M1 getting started and switch to it. Good. So we did that. Then create a file, a readme.md. This should already be created. I have the word create there in case it doesn't exist. So I already have one. And what does it want us to do? It wants us to do course section, name, and brief info that you'd like to share. So I'll do something quick. I'll have Matt Toggle. You can just put your first name. That's fine. This is just practice, and it serves another purpose. This is going to be IT whatever and whatever. Then coding is fun. I don't know, something random. Now, the reason why we want to make this edit first and why the guide is starting with that is because the first task we want to do is we want to make sure that we're able to open a pull request. That's our first step for the homework, is to try to get that pull request open. So for the first homework, that's going to be editing the README. For the second and a few other homework, that's going to be working with templates. So for example, since I don't have a template right now, pretend I have a template file, you'd have a link to it, and you'd create that file here. So for homework 2, you're probably going to have like different problems. So this is for IT 202, so do it from a 202 perspective, but same similar concept for like Java 114 or IS 601 for Python or whatever. So I'll create my problem file, and I will have my template code, and I would use that as the entry point. So then I would make sure I'd add, commit, and push this. Since it's just homework 1, I'm just going to work with the README file. So get status shows that we have our README file. We're going to go back here. I already did this, did that, did that. One thing to note, let me see if it shows here. If you see this white dot in the file name right up here, that means it's not saved. If it's not saved, everything you do here is not going to matter. So make sure you save it. If you want to add autosave, let me see if there's a quick option. Yeah, okay. So you can do Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P. If you're on Windows, Control-Shift-P, I think it is. It may be Control-Shift-P across all. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at my Mac recently. But we want to look at auto save, and then you can enable file auto save if you don't want to have to keep worrying about that. But that's up to you. Anyway, once it's saved, we see that's modified or created if we missed a step in class. And we're going to do git add readme.md, git commit -m, some summary of the change. So your commit message is always going to have some brief summary. Again, since I just created this repository, I have to set up the config stuff. So let me do git config user.email and put my GitHub email address and my GitHub username. This has to match everything on GitHub for it to work properly. And then I have to rerun my commit for it to work. And then I'm going to do git push origin m1 getting started. Good, okay. So add, commit, push, and then now we're going to go and create the pull request. So I'm going to go back, click my code area. You should get this pop up here if everything worked. If you don't, you can always double check going to your pull requests and doing a new pull request that way. The main thing is to have the destination branch on the left, which is typically going to be main. Later on in the semester, depending on the course, it might turn into dev because we might break it down in dev and prod, but other classes still going to be main. And on the right side, we have the homework related branch. If we have a difference in history, it should let us create. The difference is down here. If you do not have a difference in history, that means you missed one of the prior steps, and you have to go and make sure you do that so that you can have a change in history in order to have a pull request. So this is going to be a two-step process. It's going to ask you to create twice. It's a little weird. It should be like prepare pull request and then create pull request, but this is just how they named it in GitHub. So create the pull request. Right now we're still preparing it. It's not officially created. When we want to create it, we click create pull request and then just leave it open. This URL at the top is going to be one of your submission URLs. Every submission is going to have at least one pull request. When we get into more complex programs, you'll likely have more pull requests because you're going to be isolating features into different branches. That's the way the classes are designed. So I'm going to keep this one in mind, but I'm going to go and continue reading the instructions. Don't merge or close a pull request. Awesome. Okay, so I'm done here. Create a new file called m1 submission.md or whatever you want, as long as it makes sense to the submission. It doesn't really matter what the name is. The content of this output will be inserted here. So this output means from this worksheet. We're going to be filling in this worksheet, and either at the top or all the way at the bottom, we're going to have ways to get the output file. Okay, so let's start filling things in. This one, again, specifically for 202, but all my other classes follow similar things when they ask for things related to that class. I chose to do 202 because there's an extra step involved for the submission here, an extra deliverable. So the way it works is you have your deliverable. It's going to highlight what the category is. You have a number of tasks per deliverable. This one's a screenshot showing requested extensions installed. Whatever you have in the checklist here is strictly what's graded. So make sure you follow whatever is in this checklist. It should be kind of a self-evaluating assignment. If you want to track it yourself, you can check these off, but this does not affect anything on the grading. This is just a visual thing for you. So make sure we have Waka time with valid API key. Make sure we have MySQL related extension and PHP IntelliFence in this case. So I'm going to go to my VS Code. I don't have much. I have a couple random things. Okay, so I'm going to disable all of these. Let's reload that. And then I'm going to enable the one specifically for this homework assignment so it makes sense. Okay, so I have this MySQL one. Enable this. In general, when you're enabling extensions, you want to try to do it for workspace if you work on multiple projects, especially if you have me for like 2 or 3 different classes. Make sure you isolate what you're doing. Unfortunately, VS Code's extension management's not like wonderful yet, so everything installs globally and it could lead to confusion later. So got that, and Waka time. Okay, so with these 3 things installed, let me see if it's going to rearrange them. Okay, so I have these 3 items installed. For Waka time, it's also good to try to capture the clock down here, because if you didn't do it properly, it'll show some error message. Or if you didn't do it properly, you'll get the API key up here. That's not valid. You want to make sure it is showing at least 0 or something, so you can get full credit. So first, I'm going to grab, actually I can do it on one screenshot, so I'm going to do it like this. Now, it's optional if you want to draw on it. So, for example, let's say I want it to be super clear. I can just go like, hey, we have this, and we have this. You don't have to. It's just beneficial to show you know what you have. But anyway, regardless if you just grab a screenshot or highlight it, there's a couple ways you can upload those screenshots. So you can drag and drop, you can copy paste. You should be able to click and open a file explorer, but I don't want to do that. I just want to click here and paste it in. Give it a sec to upload. The reason why it takes a little bit is because it does compress the image, so it saves on storage space. So the original image is gone, and then you should see it in the preview and in the thumbnail. So if it looks okay at a glance, you should be fine. Now, part of the submission requirement is to have a caption for every image. If you don't have a caption for every image, the system doesn't allow the grader to apply full credit. So I'm going to say showing I have the appropriate extensions. Now, the reason why I have this caption requirement is because some people would like to use print screen. Print screen takes a screenshot of everything, and if they just upload it as is, it can get really confusing for someone that's trying to go through the grading to highlight exactly what you're trying to show the grader. So I kind of enforce you guys to say, hey, look at specifically line 12, or look at record 5, or whatever. Something clear to make it easier for the grading process and highlighting what you're doing. Now, the third step is relatively new. This is a convenience thing for the grader and to show that you know what you're doing. This is one where you can relate the screenshot to the different checklist items so you know what you've accomplished. Since I captured everything in one screenshot, I can simply mark all 3 items. Now, if I can't capture everything in one screenshot, I can always click Add Screenshot and do the process again. Um, but I don't need to since I did. Now, be very careful not to create an empty screenshot because if you create an empty screenshot, anything not filled in, the system doesn't let the grader grade because it assumes it wasn't done. So only create another screenshot if you intend to use it. So this is what I have for now for mine, and I should be getting full credit for this submission. Then verify your database creation connectivity, screenshot showing your database from IDE MySQL extension, show the VS Code left panel and your database in UCID. Okay, so the left panel is this. Depending on what is it called? Action item, I guess you click, it'll change for that specific action item. I already set up my database for this course, so I already have my connection and my UCID. This is what I want to capture. So I'm going to highlight this and you can capture everything, but really all I really care about is like this bit. So go down here, paste it in, let it upload, and then showing I have a successful DB connection. Perfect. Then, of course, for convenience, again, this doesn't hurt your grade. It's good to mark that you've accomplished those tasks, and it's going to attach it to a specific image. And then you're going to have some discussion items. So it'll either be asking something generic or it's going to be asking to describe your code or whatever. You have a full like WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. So you can get relatively creative, I guess, here. Not that you really need to. My one advice though is if you do try to like show code here, which is not really the point of this. Usually you show your code in screenshots, but if you need to show code here, uh, do make sure you use the code option. Sometimes it doesn't appear correctly depending on how the um, editor styles things. So I just want to make sure you don't get points off for something not clearly visible properly. But anyway, talk about what you learned during this module, anything interesting, except new, etc. Should be at least a few sentences for full credit. So I'm not looking for like a paragraph, although you can write as much as you want. Just at least a couple sentences to kind of get you to think about and document what's going on. So I learned that there are many steps to follow for setup since we're doing this module. It's easy to make a mistake, but once they're all done, we would only need to do them again on a different machine. I don't know. I'm doing something that hopefully no one else puts because I want you guys to put a little bit more thought into it. Most of you haven't seen these technologies or whatever um, so far, so it's good to kind of show what you're, picking up from this lesson. Did you have any issues? If so, how did you resolve them? So sometimes or commonly I'll ask a question in similar format. I want to know really what struggles you had, and I want to know how you resolve them. Now, this isn't an opportunity to vent about any issues. Usually, you'd reach out to me, a grader, if they're willing to help, office hours, or consult online resources or whatever, and resolve the issue before you do the homework. Try to work through any of these problems and then use this as a place to document that. So if it happens again, you can look back and resolve it again. That's what the purpose is. I'm trying to get you guys to document a couple things so you can always go back and look to see how you solve things. And it's to show you progress over the semester. So when you do show it to like an interviewer, they can see how you've grown through the semester and how you're able to pick up the topics and whatnot. Um, a lot of times, if I just leave no issues, people, even if they have issues, they go the path of least resistance and they just type no issues. Now, it's fine, we won't really know, but it's a good idea to document things. So I'm just going to say something relatively generic. I missed a few steps during setup, so uh, Git didn't quite work, but after going over the slides again, I was able to resolve things by fixing the path to my key in the config file in the .git folder. Something like that. I don't know. And then lastly, we have that pull request link. So again, that's our pull request here. This is the pull request I have open for the assignment. I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. Now, I don't have autosave enabled, so I'm just going to either click here or click here. Either one works. Once it's saved, you can technically close the window, but there's still one more step you want to do. So if we go back up to the top to look at the instructions, we wanted to have a M1 submission MD file, and we're going to get the content of this worksheet. Again, mostly this worksheet is for you and anyone else down the line in the future looking at it, but it's also useful because it has a link for the grader to go and grade your assignment. So I'm going to go through the process. I will click copy markdown to clipboard, or I could have downloaded it, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go to my files, create a new file, and I'm going to do m1 submission.md. I'll paste that in. You don't need to edit anything here, just make sure that this white dot goes away by saving it. If you change anything here, it's not going to affect anything on your submission. This is strictly like a snapshot of what you did. Um, I'm going to show what it's going to approximately look like. This is kind of what it's going to look like when you're done. And this is the link that the grader and myself are going to go through. So based on this link is how we're going to go to the worksheet version of the grading. We may look here if we need to, but everything is in a better format on my platform. This is for you guys for documentation stuff. This is the best I could get things styled in Markdown. Markdown doesn't have much styling capabilities, so it's not going to look fantastic, but it's better than what I had before. Okay, so now that we have this file, we can go back and we can see add, commit, and push the submission file, then we can merge. So let's go through that process. Git add m1 submission.md. Again, git status if you're not familiar with this, make sure it's tracked and graded, whatever. Git commit -m, adding my submission output file, whatever you want to call it, just try to summarize your changes. And then git push origin m1 getting started. Good. Now I should all be synchronized. You should see the new sorry, not pull request. You should see the new commit message show up. If you want to double check, you can always check files changed and make sure that you have the output here. Once everything is all good, wait for this to turn green, merge pull request, confirm merge, and then we're almost done. So once it's purple and merged, you can click main or whatever the default branch is for the particular timeline of the class. Click the file, and it should again look like this. This is the submission link you want to put on Canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me just make sure I'm done with everything. Almost. Yeah, almost. I need to turn into a student. New attempt. I already did this for a couple things. In this case, this is overdue because this is past when I had the assignment due. If you submit anything past the due date, it's going to automatically be graded as 0, but it'll be graded by the grader and they will deal with the penalty on whatever situation the penalty is. Or you'll just get the penalty applied if there's no change in the penalty, which is typically 5% per day late. Okay, so I'm going to paste that URL. Do not leave a comment unless I specifically mention a specific comment to leave. Typically, if you miss the class due to some medical thing or whatever, I'll give you certain things to type in here or whatever. But for the most part, you don't need to do a comment. You don't need to paste the link here. Just submit. The submission portion is important because the submission is what notifies us that we have something to grade. Canvas will highlight that as an actual task item for us. Comments are not task items. So if we miss it in our email, which gets really spammed from Canvas, we won't see the comment until we check the submission. So make sure you trigger a resubmission when you need to. If it's fixing something that the grader or myself are allowing you to submit, we will adjust the penalty accordingly. Um, so don't worry about triggering resubmission and getting a 0 for it. It will be graded appropriately. So submit assignment, and we get nothing because it's overdue. If it's not overdue, you get your confetti, ninjas, whatever shows up on Canvas. Now, just to summarize and show what it's going to happen, so click submission details. When it opens up, this is normal, this is okay. The reason why Canvas can't show a preview is because it's a private repository. We don't have a way to invite Canvas, so this is okay. We're always going to be grading through the new tab. So this is how we're going to get to grading your assignment. As long as it opens here, this is kind of what we want. And then we're going to access it through the link, and the link is going to show your latest submission, and everything should be okay. Now, just to wrap up the assignment, because we're technically done, you can technically close this window. I just wanted to highlight the last step, so to speak. So I'm going to go back. Once we're done with the pull request, we want to make sure we go back to that destination branch, check it out, and pull those changes. So git checkout minus, or not minus main, git pull origin main. So right now you see that the file is gone because it's a different history. We're going to synchronize that history now. Now the file is back and we're all ready for our next task. So again, when you're doing your homework, the first step is to try to get that pull request. So you want to create that branch, make some change in history, a new file, edited file, deleted file, add and commit and push, and open that pull request. Once the pull request is open, you can keep pushing to the same branch and it's going to update in that same pull request. Then once you're done filling in everything, get the output, add, commit, push one more time, and then make sure it shows up in the pull request. Then you can merge a pull request. That's the path of least steps to do. If you miss steps, or if you do things out of order, or if you rush through things and you close the pull request, it's just going to make you have to redo steps over and over. So I'm just trying to make sure you do the minimal amount of steps necessary. Otherwise, it gets unnecessarily tedious, especially once we get to more intense projects in our class. So the first few are going to be pretty basic, I guess. But then other ones might require more work and require a little bit more evidence capturing. So that's really the longest, hardest part of all this is just gathering the evidence. So we don't want to have to keep going through all these steps over and over unnecessarily. Okay, cool. So this is done. Again, if it's green and you have your submission taken care of, then you can just close it. It doesn't matter. It's all saved. You're perfectly good to go. So I'm done here, and I'm technically done with this. I'm just going to leave student view. If you ever need to go and find a pull request, you can click pull requests and view your closed ones, and that shows you what you've already done. It's okay if you have multiple pull requests for things. Sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we merge early. The one advice that I will give you on pull requests, if you make a mistake, try to avoid doing revert. So there's an option to, where is it? Revert. Don't do this. This will damage more of your history if you don't know what you're doing, and it can cause a lot of trouble. Normally, you do not need to revert things. So if you're stuck on something, just let me know, and I'll help you resolve it. Try to avoid this unless you really know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, fine, do whatever you want. But if you don't know what you're doing, try to avoid doing this, and we can usually resolve whatever the problem is. Okay, cool. So that's all done. Let me just make sure if there's anything else I need to highlight. Nope, we're good. Okay, cool. So, better late than never. This assignment has been updated. Just text, so you don't have to redo it if you're looking at this video like, oh, we changed things. The main thing is make sure you have the proper format here, just so I know who you are and where you're coming from, because your GitHub name likely doesn't match who you are. I get a lot of strange GitHub names as I do Discord names, so it's just good to know who I'm really working with. Good. If you have any other issues that weren't addressed here, or if something still doesn't make sense, please let me know. I tried to cover everything we need to do, and I tried to summarize it a couple of times. So, make your change or make your branch, make a relevant change, add, commit, push, open pull request, do your work, fill in the sheet, make sure everything's saved, get the output, create that submission file, save the file, add commit push, uh, merge your pull request, go to the main branch or whatever, find your submission file, get that link, and paste it to Canvas. That's pretty much what the step's going to be. Some classes we're going to have a dev and a prod branch. Um, prod is where you're going to be getting your submission stuff from because that should be like production. It shouldn't change, and we're not going to touch that production branch on our local machine. We're just going to create it once, send it out. The only time production is going to change is through pull requests. We're going to be always, working from dev and then creating those branches as if it was main. Other classes, it's just main. So it depends on the class. Just make sure you follow the specific classes, structure and requirements and whatever. That usually comes up like module 2 or so. So just keep an eye out for that. Uh, in quick summary, IT 202, 106, IS 601, we're having dev and prod later. IT 114, we're just having main, and maybe other classes. I have to see how it goes. So hopefully that covers everything. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps. Let me know if there's anything else, and see you guys in the next video or class.